It's time for another of Lucent's role tutorials, Jungle. If you played League for a while, you'll know that a weak jungler can ruin your game, so the purpose of this tutorial is to ensure you will not be that jungler. We're going to talk about what the role entails, how to choose a jungler, some common builds and playstyles, and of course, some tips and tricks to get you started. As usual, I've analyzed higher elo games as well as lower elo games to make this a useful tutorial regardless of your current skill level. Let's talk about how to choose your jungler. A good team will build around each other, and the jungler is one role that can go either tank or damage rather easily. Regardless of your team comp, however, mobility is key for jungling. It's good to choose a jungler like Vi or Lucent who have a pretty quick recharging dash. Junglers like Udyr and Evelynn have a speed boost to help them get around easier. You can take it to the extreme with someone like Pantheon who just goes wherever the heck he wants. If your team has a super tank like Shyvana, Nasus, or Renekton up top, feel free to play a squishier champion like Shaco, Eve, or AD Vi in the jungle. If you have a Yasuo, Vlad, Jax, or any moderate tank up top, pick someone like Nasus, Amumu, Lee Sin, or Tank Vi. Be sure your team is still balanced with AP and AD as you choose your jungler. Before we get to tips and tricks, I want to talk about build, since that will make or break you. I'll talk less than a minute regarding jungle builds, since they're all pretty different. I'll just give a sample tank and AD jungle build, so bear with me. There's almost no reason not to start with Hunter's Machete and 5 health pots. Every jungler should build a jungle item. Spirit of the Ancient Golem is the jungle item for tanks. It adds bonus health, CDR, income, and lifesteal spell vamp. Here's a sample tanky Lee Sin build I pulled from Challenger tier. Spirit of the Ancient Golem, Ninja Tabby, Randuin's Omen, Spirit Visage, Banshee's Veil, and Guardian Angel. Spirit of the Elder Lizard will boost your attack potential quite a bit early game. Between increasing monster damage and adding true burn, this is a useful item to grab on attack-heavy champions. On a champion like Vi, you might want to try Spirit of the Elder Lizard, Mercury's Treads, Black Cleaver, Ravenous Hydra, Banshee's Veil, and Trinity Force to get that extra oomph in your attacks. Okay, now let's get to the juicy stuff. First, we're going to go over briefly your early game. If your jungler has mana, I'd recommend starting blue every time. If you don't have mana, it gets a little hairier. Always start at either blue or red. I'd recommend practicing your jungle rotation in bot games to get a feel for how jungling works if you're new to it. Junglers like Hecarim and Lee Sin should gank early and often. Speaking of ganking, let's look at that for a moment. Ganking is all about getting your team ahead of the other team. If you go in for a gank and no one dies on either team, you still applied pressure. If you go in and come out positive, awesome. If you go in and come out negative, well, you need to rethink your strategies. It's not exactly easy to get in and gank, so I'll throw out a few tips you may or may not know. Use the space between lanes to your advantage. Sneak in behind the enemy or come barreling in through the river. If you can get a good angle, you may even be able to kick your opponent towards your team. Sneakiness is key here. Make sure your team knows you're coming in to gank. I always ping twice just in case. If you commit to it, commit. Be wary of diving early game. A successful gank can really get your team ahead, so be brave. Use walls to your advantage. Lee Sin, Vi, Zac, and even Shaco can get through walls no problem, most likely without your opponents even knowing you're there. Use this to your advantage when you can. Have your lane bait them toward the wall and then pounce on them. As with everything, practice with this makes perfect. Do not gank if there is no opportunity. If your lane is almost dead, go in and hold the turret, but don't try to engage if your lane is too weak and doesn't want to. Giving free kills is never a good thing. As you get more familiar with your role, you will be able to tell better, but for now, don't gank low health lanes if you're new to it. Wait until the lane is at least on even ground before going in. Not feeding the lanes is crucial to your success. As you jungle, a lane might get beaten down and ask you to cover for it. It is a good idea to head straight over to assist. If you are getting Dragon or Baron or above, finish and then head over. Remember, it is a team game and you're trying to keep your team ahead. Letting a tower get pushed uninhibited can really screw over your teammates. If you just ganked bottom and top is asking for you to cover, it may be better to simply push down the bottom turret. With practice, you'll figure this out a little more. When your blue buff comes up for a second time, give it to your mid. Very few mids will pass up an opportunity to get blue. If your mid is doing absolutely terrible, you may take it for yourself, but generally this early in the game they won't yet be a lost cause. Hopefully. You may want to give your red to your ADC or top laner depending on the circumstance. Always let your mid take blue if they come for it. Help them with it, don't just let them lose all their HP to it. It's in your job description. Now, I know stealing is wrong, but hey, all's fair in love and league. If you see the jungler down bottom, feel free to steal his blue if it's up. Go through his camps and steal just the big monsters. If the enemy is at their blue and you're close by, use a smite steal to claim it. If they're baroning, be prepared to smite. If you're baroning, be sure to have your smite ready and track Baron's HP. You don't want it to get stolen. Just a warning, running amok through their jungle can be rewarding or disastrous, so be careful with this one. If you still want a little extra competitive edge, download the Jungle Timer app. It will keep track of buff timers as well as Baron, Dragon, and even some long skill cooldowns. If you practice the techniques discussed above, you'll see an improvement in your jungling skills. Check my other videos to see specific champion guides and the other 4 roles explained. Thanks for watching, and until next time, see you in the Rift.